Welcome to the Hydrogen 2.0 podcast, where Alberta's energy story evolves. Join us as we explore what's changed, what's working, and what's next from Edmonton to beyond. Here's your host, Kessia Kopecki.
Canada's hydrogen economy is getting ready to come together to the Edmonton region, to North America's largest hydrogen conference, the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, just in a few weeks. So what better time than now to be talking about what to expect at this conference and what the themes and trends are happening in our hydrogen economy that might influence some of the content and what we can expect at that conference. So for that, I'm here with Nick Samain and Emelie Wood-Forsberg, both from DMG Events, the conference organizers of the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, to dig into those details. Nick, Emelie, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having us, Kessia. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you for inviting us, Kessia.
So I just want to jump right into it. For listeners who might not be familiar with what this conference is, can you give a little bit of context about what DMG's role is and what you're bringing to the Canadian Hydrogen Convention in the Edmonton region? Nick, would you like to go ahead first?
Sure. Thanks for that. Really, DMG's role is, we're a global organizer, and I think, Kessia, it's safe to say we're in that era of digital dominance. Let's face it, that there's pretty much any way to get information at almost any time, and continuing to be accelerated by exciting technologies like AI. And through all of that, DMG's mission is really bringing that face-to-face element and continuing to ensure that it's not so much about remaining competitive with digital, but is utilizing those digital capabilities to the best of the ability, and enabling people to connect face-to-face for those important connections. And that certainly is our primary driver when it comes to making that connectivity for the national hydrogen community across Canada, as we've been doing and are looking towards another exciting edition in April in Edmonton for the Canadian Hydrogen Convention.
Thanks so much. Emelie, would you like to add anything with that?
What we've seen is that this event has quickly grown to really establish itself as North America's largest hydrogen event, really bringing together the entire ecosystem.
With that, the event has quickly grown and established itself as North America's premier event, as Emelie mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about this journey over the past 5 years and some of the surprises that you've seen, as well as any lessons, Nick?
Wow, so there's been, Kessia, plenty of surprises and plenty of lessons in those 5 years. And thanks for the question. It's really incredible to think that we're hitting this 5-year milestone on the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. 5 years ago for this conference, and for all conferences, a little bit about, with DMG Events, we really started to ideate this conference with our key partners in the Edmonton region, Edmonton Global, Explore Edmonton, the City of Edmonton, Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub. And so we had this thought that, at the time, there was a lot of virtual conferences. And with DMG Events, we run close to 100 events around the world in different geographies, 13 offices in 13 different countries. But here in Canada, we noticed that there was quite a fragmentation of different hydrogen communities. And at that time, not to go too far in history, but hydrogen hubs, that was exciting emerging idea that was just coming to realization. People were wondering, how are we going to galvanize Canada as a country behind a hydrogen strategy? And we were fortunate. There was some strong guidance coming out of both some hydrogen outlooks and planning from the federal and from here in the province of Alberta, with some documents. So we had a bit of a framework. But that said, we really couldn't run because we were under the pandemic, or the tail end of that. So 5 years ago, we kind of said, well, you know what, the heck with that. Nothing can stop us. We had time on our hands. because we weren't actually running any live events and our full team. So we just got to work and started to think about what would be some important pillars we really wanted to ensure that we pulled together. I mentioned the partnerships. That was first and foremost. DMG events, we can't and do not operate. It's almost impossible to put together an event of this size and scale and equip it with the ability to hit some real milestones. So we started to contact members of a committee and to say, hey, we've got this crazy idea. How about a national convention in and around hydrogen? And I won't say to our surprise, but it was a little bit. People started nodding their heads and really thinking that this is a good idea. We wanted to be very, very careful, and it speaks a little bit about to the DMG approach is that when I mentioned the other events and communities and conference, we are not out to, and this convention is meant to be one that is uniting those communities, those other events. It's not meant to replace them or to take anything away, but we are an organization that has the ability to create that scale of bringing thousands of people together. And when we start to think of that collision of ideas and content coming together, that really helps put it on the map. There was that first year in April when I think the pandemic had just cleared. We had booked the venue, and we were able to open. And we were really fortunate, and with a bit of luck, which always goes hand in hand with the business of running events, able to open to a tremendously successful year one. What did we learn from that? We learned that that power of community within the broader energy sector here in Alberta and Canada is vibrant and strong, and people wanted to meet. They wanted to get face to face and be able to exchange those ideas, just those intangibles that go along with that, and so we just kept building on that. Year two, right up here through to year five, is building partnerships, building strong commercial relationships throughout the supply chain, right from producers to engineering companies to our several exhibitors. So I think we also learned, and Emelie, we know this, that when we get together and Emelie leads our governing body, we set some pretty high goals with that governing body, Emelie, which is, what is the day after approach? We really plan our events is that the convention's over. It's not letting the air out of the balloon, but it is that the convention's over. What have we achieved, Emelie? And I think that speaks to a little bit on how we establish our theming and what we're getting to. But we definitely take those learnings, and there we go, Emelie. We apply it to the next one.
Absolutely, Nick. And to add to it, I think it's about starting with the end in sight. What do we want people to think, do, feel, action when they leave the event? That's really what our mission is. And to add to your earlier thought as well, I think what makes this convention so powerful is that, going back to convening the ecosystem, is that we don't just talk about collaboration, whether across Canada or internationally, but we truly bring it to life through international speakers, government participation, and recognizable stakeholders, all who come because they really see Canada as a serious player and investment opportunity in this space. So again, it's a testament to the power of events like these and their ability to shine a spotlight on an industry and build momentum. And of course, in this case, also put Edmonton right at the center of the hydrogen conversation and attract high-profile international attention. In earlier editions, we had the honor of welcoming the president of Poland, for example, as well as a significant delegation from the European Union only last year. So we're excited to keep building on that momentum and really convene the community.
Just for some context about the power of DMG's events, you also host one of the largest energy events in the world, ADIPEC in Abu Dhabi, that has about 200,000 attendees, right? So if an organization that's looking at events like that to that level of success is now bringing it to Edmonton, that is quite an indicator of just the scale and opportunity that exists here and interest as well.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And I mean, you mentioned our ADIPEC event in the fall in Abu Dhabi, and more than 200,000. In fact, I think we touched 250,000 attendees this year, and that's really our largest gathering. But Cassie, as you mentioned, whether it's ADIPEC or it's much earlier this year, it was India Energy Week, where we hosting Canadian ministers in front of these large audiences. That is a power for us, that we've got this network of events from the Middle East, North Africa, Europe, Asia, and here in the Americas. And with the Canadian hydrogen, we're immediately able to reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of energy professionals through our global network in almost every country around the world that is attending or walking through the doors. And that is a big difference as an organizer for us over any others in the market. The other thing with the events, and you touched on that, with these big numbers, and it's not always about how many people attend. We know that there's quality and what the types of conversations are. But one thing that is different about this Canadian Hydrogen Convention and several other of the events is that you've got different levels of participation. I know we're going to talk about some of the great programming that we have at the Hydrogen Convention, different conferences and networking, but you've got an event that and that we very much welcome almost anybody to come and attend, whether you're a young student, right up to right up to an experienced CEO, or as Emelie mentioned, the head of state. There's something there, and the event is accessible, and that's sometimes hard to get out to the market where you've got. And it's nothing against conferences where it's just a conference. There sometimes can be a high cost of entry. You can attend. We get several hundred students that attend free of charge. We want them to come and really see and touch and feel what's going on, see that equipment on the show floor, talk to people, talk to other people that have dreams and ideas about energy and about hydrogen. And that is not something that is fringe for us. That's, in fact, is at the core of what we do. And you get a really different energy when you just close your eyes on the show floor and listen to that. But it's people talking and sharing ideas, and maybe suspending a little bit of that day-to-day in and out. And it can be really magical.
I've attended the Canadian Hydrogen Convention every year since, I think, the second year, 2023. And for me, as somebody who works in communications and storytelling, I'm often a fly on the wall, and a fly on the wall often has a really good perspective of what that room looks like. And from my perspective, it has changed a lot. We're seeing a lot more young people. We're seeing a lot more leadership come. We're seeing a lot more high-profile guests, which is really exciting. And also just watching when exhibitors and different partners are bringing their technology and demonstrating it there, how much that innovation is changing as well is really interesting to see. Really cool to see that come alive at this conference every year. So speaking of kind of what's happening at this conference, I'd love to talk a little bit about, what are the themes? So as this is consistently and ever evolving and emerging, so that kind of leads me to my next thought and my next question when we're thinking about the themes and how this conference has emerged. What kind of themes or topics are consistently coming up this year over maybe last year? This year's theme or main theme for content is hydrogen at work. So Emelie, maybe you can start with giving us a little bit of an idea of what that is, and maybe a little bit on your research side of how you're landing on that.
Yes, absolutely, Kessia. And I think I'll take us right back to really talk about some of the themes we saw earlier on in earlier editions. I think it's safe to say that the consensus has been that there's a lot of hype around hydrogen since the launch of Canada's hydrogen strategy. And as a result of that, we saw, not exclusively, of course, but certainly a strong focus on the supply side, as well as Canada's ability to produce hydrogen. And since then, over the 4 editions that we've had so far, we've seen a change in that narrative. Rather than just focusing on supply and ramping up production, what we're seeing themes around fueling demand. And I think from those earlier years, the narrative has shifted from potential to a more pragmatic, I guess, conversation. So I think we have seen a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, but that lens of pragmatism is really shining through. So in 2025, for example, we saw a real pivot towards demand generation. Questions like, how do we actually fuel uptake? How do we activate markets? And how do we move from ambition to deployment? So as you say, Kessia, this year's theme is hydrogen at work. And I think that's a natural extension of the shift from, hype to pragmatism. It's all about showcasing real projects, real customers, and real use cases. And from, our market research and from our governing body, a key insight has been that the industry really wants this pragmatism and what needs to happen next. So I think that demand story continues to dominate. And in that sense, the theme hydrogen at work, it's not just a theme, but it really reflects where the sector is heading. So in terms of overarching themes, we'll be exploring topics like policy signals and where investment is flowing. We'll also be discussing the viable use cases for hydrogen, which will include industry-led conversations around heavy transport deployment and aviation, just to name a few, as well as some successful technology innovations and production methods. But we also know that people will really want to understand how markets will activate, not just in Canada, but also abroad, especially against the backdrop of some uncertainty in other jurisdictions. So I think you can expect panels this year that really address the elephant in the room, both the critical importance of Canada, increasing funding and reducing red tape and providing policy certainty, and also the future of hydrogen in other jurisdictions.
Do you have anything to add with that? I'm kind of curious on your point of view when we're thinking about that elephant in the room and also the people in the room and how everybody together there might be able to, address any kinds of challenges.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I mean, elephant in the room. That's one that we kind of hit head on. I mean, we're so fortunate to have an ultra clever and influential and insightful governing body on this event. As if you've had a chance to check out the website, whether that's from some of the companies that are involved directly, what Emelie is mentioning, whether from the demand side, from Toyota to Siemens to Shell to Suncor to several other both government and non-government associations, and they really have encouraged us as the organizer is let's utilize this convention to uncover where things are going. And the best part about it is, look, we are, as if you see the program really shaped up now, there's so many expert voices that are going to talk about that at the convention. But you combine that with, if you've got a business in hydrogen, there's nothing can take away from all those conversations. I think that you mentioned, Kessia, people, what's up with you? It's just a massive power to talk about where is this sector going, where are the opportunities, and what needs to be done. But whether that's not just government, but industry, and from a global market standpoint. And I think, especially in that last point, when you power in the significant international delegations that have been supporting this event since pretty much year one and only growing from there. It's just a unique opportunity to balance. We sometimes get it's okay. We all get a little bit narrow focused on what's happening in the region, what's happening in Alberta, what's happening in Canada, and we're finding out what's happening globally. But this is really the only one place where you've got all that mixed in and real delegations. If you're looking to attend a hydrogen conference where everybody's going to just go up on stage and say how great everything is, and there's no challenges or problems, that's not this conference. I can guarantee you that. It's also not a conference where everything is meant to be negative, just so you don't misread. But this is one where the speakers and the delegates take on the challenges head on, and we tend to look at that. I mean, DMG, we're a 139-year-old company, and we're sometimes reminded of that from our chairman as well. And I love sometimes just going down the rabbit hole of putting hydrogen in and reading about how long we've been working with hydrogen and all the different and incredible uses over from launching to space to the very exciting up to this year's developments of how we're continuing to innovate. This is a sector with a backbone and with very, very clever people and strong leadership. And that is what this convention is really a lightning rod to bring those people together. So we will be, and Emelie, as she mentioned, will be uncovering those challenges and really drawing on that power of several thousand people together under one roof to not just expose those, but to come up and communicate those strategies to the community and to the international energy community as well, which is one that this convention is really on that international radar.
Yeah, speaking of international, I find it funny. It's the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. It draws together the entire Canadian hydrogen economy and clean energy economy, but it is really, truly an international event, right? Like every year we have different delegations from all over the world. Last year, wasn't it? We had a chartered flight from Japan, specifically full of business leaders, all looking at the Edmonton region. So I really like that you touched on that. With that as well, when we're thinking about the people in the room, and maybe this is a broad answer that goes over years, or maybe there's something that I don't know about 2026 CHC that you do. What's something that we can look forward to, or that's going to really stand out as far as the programming or the trade floor or any kind of activities at this event?
Yeah, I'll go to Emelie on, because we do have an incredibly exciting program, and I think we've been delving in on the strategic conference, which is one that we tend to. It's the premier and the big CEO speaking, but we've got an exciting change this year. One of the challenges we had, which was really ensuring that a convention like this that has two conferences, it's got a business conference, but it's also got I'd say the strongest and best attended technical conference for the hydrogen sector in Canada.
Awesome. Emelie, when we're looking at the content and what's going to be happening this year, what stands out to you the most that maybe you want everyone to know about too?
Yeah, absolutely. What I really look forward to is the narrative that we're sharing on the strategic conference stage. We're starting strong with sessions focused on Canadian hydrogen in a global context. And we're seeing participants from the US, from Canada, from Europe as well come in to address these, questions on the global stage. So I think that's a strong start to the day, after which we'll look at how hydrogen is being adopted in global markets. Some of the new program areas that I'm particularly excited about, not that I play favorites with my sessions, but I think it's worth highlighting some of the new program points we're bringing in for 2026, including hydrogen as the next frontier in defense logistics. We'll be exploring everything from natural hydrogen near forts to microgrids that enhance operational security, as well as streamline permitting on military compounds. We'll also be, looking at sessions that highlight the next phase in Canada's hydrogen system. really, how the sector continues to evolve as a key pillar. And what we now often hear is referred to as the energy addition. Finally, the other thing I really want to highlight that I'm hearing more and more about in the market is natural hydrogen, and really exploring Canada's potential in this space. So those are some of the program points that we'll see this year that I really look forward to. And I mean, what better way to wrap up, a couple of weeks of conference than with an awards gala that really shines a spotlight on excellence in the industry. We'll be celebrating winners across a number of award categories, and we really hope that our delegates can join and show their support of the industry during an, informal but very lovely gala.
And that awards gala will probably highlight, I'm assuming, leaders and businesses and projects from all over Canada as well, ones that might have international partnerships, probably many from right here in the Edmonton region as well. What do you hope that you've accomplished for maybe the Canadian hydrogen economy?
No, absolutely. I think some of the things that we've talked about earlier is that shift in conversation, but also a shift in how this industry is shaping up. I think some of the key words I'm also hearing is that of, industry maturation and resilience. And I think as these, really truly viable use cases for hydrogen start to, continue to take shape, I think that's where the conversation will go. And even though I know we've seen, certain delay in project delivery, which might raise some questions around, the volume of low emission hydrogen production that we can feasibly see in operation by 2030, I think there's a story of resilience and commercialization and scale. And I look forward to seeing where we are in 2027.
We have been working now for obviously over the last 10 plus months pulling this together. And there's some big themes here in Canada. And I think this is if for folks listening, what is really going to be on the table there. We're looking to the committee, the community here is looking towards the hydrogen hubs. I mean, the incredible leadership in Edmonton, and as you kindly mentioned, we're getting delegates from across Canada. So they're coming from whether their hubs are just getting started, whether that's in Ontario or BC or Atlantic Canada. Look, let's face it, they're coming to the Edmonton region and to the Hydrogen Convention to really continue to learn about what's needed from that standpoint. That's a big one. There is what's next for hubs. You can absolutely, speaking to the international delegates coming, that export potential, primarily going west, of course, to Asia and Europe as well. We're going to continue to see that as a trend going forward.
That's going to be April 21st to 23rd. Expo's on the 21st and 22nd. And to register, everyone should go to hydrogenexpo.com. From my perspective, I am very much looking forward to connecting with both of you at this amazing event that you work so hard on all year and seeing it all come together. And I think the rest of the Edmonton region hydrogen ecosystem is going to be really thrilled and have a lot of positive things to say about this year to come. So thank you both so much for joining. And again, for anybody listening, feel free to check out hydrogenexpo.com to get your registration. That's it for today's episode of Hydrogen 2.0. If you are looking to learn more about the Edmonton region's hydrogen economy, learn more about the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub, or get in touch with us, you can visit hydrogen.ca or send us an email at hello@hydrogen.ca. Also, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub, to stay up to date on all the news and all the activities happening in our hydrogen economy.